So, yeah, I just wanted to jump in first. Thank you guys for having me. It's really nice to talk to you guys. Kelly, I want to start. You're actually the first person I ever interviewed back in 2017
Wow.
when Last Jedi came out down in Miami. I got
How did
to.
I do, Kyle? How was I?
I thought it was great. I mean, you kind of got me into it. I've been doing it ever since. So it's been a blast. So I'm so glad that
Amazing.
to kind of get reunited here. That's really cool. Full
Oh, it's
circle.
great to see you again.
Yeah, absolutely. So I kind of want to start with you here real quick is like how do you your career has changed so much these past 4 years? Like, do you feel that jump? Like that things feel different for you now compared to back then?
Oh yeah, I'm horrified. I'm having I feel like I've been on a roller coaster ride. But I mean, if you remember me then, was so new and
Yeah.
so shiny and nervous and afraid, and I think that I have absolutely changed since then. I think summertime is a huge part of that, being in this community of artists that are so intentional about the things that they put into the world has really made me look at myself and made me look at the things that I want to make and create. I think that I am an absolutely privileged person, that I have the ability to pick and choose the things I get to be involved in. And these young poets have absolutely changed the way that I look at the world. So yes, I am changed, Kyle. Nice to meet you. I hope that you can see that I've grown in the last
Yeah, I mean,
5 years.
I
I'd like
feel
to
like
hope that I have.
feel like we all have. And like Carlos, I want to jump to you now too. I haven't gotten to talk to you yet, obviously, but I've seen all of your films ever since. And your films to me are just like they're great, but then they just get better and better after that. And I've had a chance to sit down and watch them. So coming to summertime now, how does it feel to like how do you feel transitioning from something like a very serious subject matter like blind spotting to animation with Raya, and then now you're here with almost like this poetic Terrence Malick-esque film in summertime?
Thank you so much. That's so kind of you to say. It's been a journey, and I think I am as terrified as Kelly is. We're creative people, and we don't know what the future is going to bring. I think I've just been incredibly lucky to meet people that I'm very inspired by, Kelly being one of them, the poets being also really, really, really important part of my growth as a person, as an artist. So I am just thrilled that I've been able to immerse myself and surround myself with people that I find incredibly inspiring and whose voices I find incredibly important. And as a director, that's sort of like all you can dream for, is just to surround yourself with other artists who motivate you to be better, who push you to expand yourself, to continue growing, to continue learning. And every single project I've worked on has been that, but summertime has provided that in ways that I didn't even think were possible. This group of poets, it has changed my life. This group of poets has taught me so much, and I hope that the movie captures that. I fell in love with them, and I became a much better person after having met them. So if I can share a little bit of that experience with people who watch the movie, I will feel just eternally satisfied.
Well, my next question was going to be about the artists themselves. What was the process even finding these people, these very talented poets, and getting to meet them and deciding we're going to put them all in a movie together and kind of have them interact?
It was really just luck or coincidence, or if you're into like bigger, broader magical things, it was just the universe putting us together. I met them through this nonprofit organization. They invited me to a spoken word showcase. I showed up without really much expectation, and I was just so profoundly moved by hearing all of their stories. And it just, something, I remember stepping out of that room and something in the back of my head just telling me that I needed to explore this relationship, and I needed to see how I could be of support to the work that they were doing. And that's how the idea of making a movie came to be, and that's how We essentially just jumped in with very little preparation just to try to capture their voices. And that's how Kelly came onto the project. It's been this very intuitive, natural, like inspiring process. And I still can't believe that it exists. I still can't believe that it's going to be in theaters and that people are going to get to see it. It's just been uh, a very unexpected journey full of surprises.
So, I mean, Kelly, I want to come back to you then here. How did you get involved with Carlos on this project specifically, and what were you kind of passionate about going into it?
Well, Carlos and I met doing Raya, and we had dinner one night after doing an intro at the LCAP once theaters were reopening. And we were just talking about the things that we want to make in the future and the things that are important to us. And Carlos brought up Summertime and sent me a link, and I watched it and absolutely fell in love with all of the poets and the film itself. And I think I've always known that I wanted to have a mission for my career. Like, I didn't want to just get caught up in the idea of being on posters and just like choosing things that were big, if that made sense. And Summertime for me really offered me sort of a looking glass into a world that I wanted to live in. Here were all of these young artists who were so brave and so vulnerable. And I think I saw the film at a time where I was really wanting to be more of those things. And now being part of this community, I think has taught me a lot about it, and has changed me as an artist in a really cool way. So yeah, grateful.
I think one of the big things about this film is that since there's so many characters and there's so many different poets and poems going on throughout this, everybody who watches this can grab onto something. Even if one thing doesn't relate to you, something else can. And there's so many different themes that go back and forth between this. So my next question, I guess, would be, is there a specific theme that stuck out to each one of you that you related to the most?
I think to me, I mean, more than the themes, I think that this philosophy that the poets operate under of using experiences, using their life experiences, all of them, the good, the bad, the ugly, the complicated, and creating something beautiful out of it, and creating something that they want to share with other people. Like that philosophy to me is I think what has moved me the most. Just the fact that they embrace all their imperfections, and they're not even imperfections. What we normally consider as imperfections, or what we've been trained to think of as imperfections. They sort of like shift the lens, and they say, no, these are the things that make us us, and these are the things that make us beautiful and complex, and we're just going to celebrate them. And I feel like that philosophy for me has been the most impactful. I don't know, Kelly, if there's like one particular thing that you feel like you've connected with the most.
I think, Carlos said this earlier, like the idea that he really hopes that audiences leave this film with empathy. And I think that as artists and as creators, but also as human beings, like, yeah, I guess, surface level, you can sort of pick out one story and be like, I relate to that one the most. But I think the goal is, as human beings, we want to open our hearts and minds to be more compassionate to the stories that we might think at first glance we can't relate to. And for me, I think that is very, very important, to just becoming more empathetic to experiences that we might not at first glance understand. And I think Summertime does a really good job of making all of these poets' stories accessible to, I think, an audience that, if the audience grew up in the same world I grew up in, that has been historically fed the same stories over and over. So I think that's kind of the most important thing for me.
One of the funny things about this is I'm actually moving to New York City within the next 2 weeks. And
where are you right now?
I'm in Vero Beach, Florida. So it's a small town compared to where I'm going to be upgrading to. So it's a big move coming up, and I'm excited about it. But in your film, watching it, when it got to the poem, I believe the actor's name was Tivy. He's right there on the poster up front.
Iris.
Yes. When he starts talking about the $15 for a piece of toast, that to me, I'm like, oh man, things are gonna be so much more expensive once I head up there. But I love how they like broke it down, how he broke it down to you can do so much with $15. You can go from having you can either spend $15 on a piece of toast, or you could set yourself up for something. And I think that was just that's something that really I latched onto, and it hooked me into the movie immediately. And then you take it all the way towards the end, and the limo driver's talking about time and how you kind of control time. It's not something you waste. And is there like a specific, like Carlos, I'll go with you here. Is there a specific order as to how you wanted to put these poems in? Like, did you have an idea of what you wanted to put in, or like where?
No, I mean, what was most special and what was most scary about the process is that we didn't, and that we pieced it together with the poets over our summer workshop. And when we first started the project, we really had no idea of what it would be. We didn't even know if it would work. And halfway through the shoot, I still didn't know if it would work. And even as we were editing it together, it was just like, what are we doing? And is this going to be coherent?
Mm-hmm.
And I think Kelly and I were talking about this a little bit earlier. It's that chaos that I feel like gives the movie its voice and its personality. And it wasn't just chaos for chaos' sake, but it was, I think what was most important about capturing these stories the way we did was to find some kind of truth and to allow these poets to express themselves in a way that was unfiltered and in a way that was inspiring to them. And that meant that we were going to have to give up the control that we normally yearn for as filmmakers. We want to have everything figured out and everything under sort of like our control in order for the movie to be sort of like this pristine thing that's in our heads. And this was the opposite. This was like, we're going to give all of that up. We're going to put actors who have never professionally acted in front of the camera. We're going to give them the pen and let them write it. And they're going to tell us what the movie needs to be. And that embracing of the unknown is really what makes, I think, the movie feel so alive. And we were able to capture that. We were able to capture these young artists just existing in their environments, which I think it's the most special thing that we could have done.
And that's kind of was going to be my next question, is that you get the vibe that there was a lot of passion put into this project, that everybody had something they wanted to convey to the audience. And I was wondering, like on set, was that also the vibe going on before you guys turn on the cameras? Was everyone just kind of excited and ready to go?
It really was that, and I would love to take credit for it, but it comes from the poets. It comes from the way that they approach their work. It comes from like they just have this sense of responsibility with their work and with their voices that isn't like anything I have seen. They like the sheer purpose of them doing poetry is to connect with people who may need it and to pass on a message that may have a real positive impact in someone else's story. And that just spirit of giving and that spirit of passing on goodness it really permeated everything that we do. And we were shooting the movie and we were just all cast and crew felt so inspired to be doing it. Like, it was a very independent production. We did it with very, very little. It barely came to be. But everyone there felt committed to lifting these voices and to supporting these artists in every possible way. And I think that's a very similar feeling that took over Kelly and why she's joining us, and why there's just so much passion and so much honesty that is tied to these stories that I hope they really do. It does really permeate out into the people who see it, because I think it's so beautiful, so powerful, and really has the potential to do some real positive change.
So Kelly, with you in the producer role that you have here, what do you hope to do as a producer as compared to when you're an actress in a film? Like, how do you feel different producing this as opposed to when you acted in other films before?
Sorry, I'm smiling because I was just thinking about what you were saying. You're asking that question and how you interviewed me in 2017. Crazy.
It's come a long way.
I'm a different woman. Yeah, I think that, something that I have loved deeply is just being able to be on these calls and hear these conversations that I think normally actors are not privy to. I'm on these, we talk about marketing, and we're talking about like where the movie's going to be shown and all these things. And I'm just, honestly, most of the time I'm just sitting there learning. And it's such an incredible thing. I am also very aware, I think, of things that I was dealing with as a new actor coming into the world. And I think for me, being in this community of young artists who I think might be experiencing something, I don't want to project anything onto them, but they're also, all of them, making their feature film debut and knowing that this movie is going to come out and sharing the beautiful experiences of it, but also the harder things. And as much as possible, I want to try and make that transition for them as smooth as can be, because I feel like that was something in my career I didn't know how to handle. So I'm not saying I know everything, but I guess what I'm saying is I'm trying as much as possible to be the person that I wish I had around when I was experiencing that.
That's a great way to put it. I just graduated film school last year, which is, obviously the worst time to graduate is during the pandemic, but everything, you still stay passionate about it. But watching this film, it felt like something that like I was just doing when I was in film school, because I got to create a couple of short films as well. And it felt like that vibe of everyone's just there to express their voice, to have an opinion, to make themselves heard, and you want to be found. I think this film has a lot to offer for it. And Kelly, I kind of want to ask you is like, well, I kind of want to jump into some of the fun stuff that's in here. The Mama song. How did you feel when you first heard that for the first time? I love that Mama song. It goes from him just freestyling, and then the music producer's like, rap about something you love, and he's like, okay, my mama, and then it just goes into the Mama stuff and becomes this big hit. So for both of you guys, Kelly, I'll start with you. How did you feel when you first heard that song?
I laughed so hard and felt so much joy and glee. Yeah, I think, I don't know, Carlos, I'd love to hear your experience with this. Was that a moment that was improvised, or was that a moment that was...
That was a moment that was improvised. I mean, we had some kind of like vague idea of what we want. Like we knew that the producer was going to sort of like, it's like a bit of poking fun at this very real process that they do, where it's like, no, talk about something that really actually means something to you, your community, your friends, your family. That's how they write poetry. And obviously, this is a little bit more jokey, but we knew that much. And then Austin, who does that little bit in the song, he's a rapper, and he does a lot of freestyling, and he is brilliant and fast on his feet. And all those jokes he came up with in the spot while we were recording. And I remember we had a big crowd of people looking behind the monitor, and it was so hard for them not to laugh out loud. We had to like tell people to hold their faces so they wouldn't make sound that would ruin the takes. It's great. Yeah.
I imagine there was probably another moment like that when you're in the restaurant, and he steps on the counter and he's like, who shits in a trash can with all the cheeseburgers on there? I had me laughing out loud.
Yeah, no, that so much of the movie are moments like that really just came naturally from this combination of people, and it was so joyous to be around. I'm glad to hear that it translates, because we had such a blast putting this movie together.
Was there any? I'll finish off with this. Was there anything that was cut from the film that you wanted to hear, that you wish could have made the film?
We didn't cut a lot, just because of, as I explained like a little bit earlier, this was a bit of an experiment, and we weren't sure how it was going to come together. We weren't sure what was going to work and what wasn't. So there's a lot of stuff that didn't make it in. But I do feel like we're all collectively just so proud of what the movie is and how it came together. The poets whose work ended up not making it to the final cut were still so supportive of the project and are coming to the premiere. And it's really, I think it's about the community rather than like any individual piece. And they really understand that. And and I think the movie is exactly what it needs to be. I do also know that all these poets have so much more that they want to say in them, so I hope that the movie just becomes like a little tiny step in their long creative journeys, just because I think their voices are a lot louder than what the movie allowed them to be. So I happy to be just a small part in their long history of amazing creative work.
Well, Kelly, Carlos, it's been an absolute pleasure getting to talk to you guys. I really appreciate your time. You guys, I love your work that you've done so far. Summertime is great, and then I can't wait to see what comes in the future for both of you. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Kyle. This was lovely. Thank you so much.
Great to see you.
Absolutely.